Die slachtoffers hebben niks met elkaar te maken.
Geen getuigen.
De zaak is opgelost.
Je meent het, of?
Sarcasme, dat vind ik leuk.
En jij bent echt onuitstaanbaar. Allee.
Alles onder controle, professor?
Absoluut.
Saturday night at 9 on MPT.
Every month, the Wise & Well Center offers a wide variety of virtual classes that will keep you active, engaged, and social this winter. For more information, visit chooskeswick.org or call 410-662-4363.
What's your next move? Extend beyond your current position or make inroads into a new field through UMBC's professional master's programs and certificates in cybersecurity, data science, biotechnology, and more. Claim your future at UMBC.
71 acres in downtown Baltimore devoted to learning, discovery, care, and service. We train the professionals who secure the health, well-being, and just treatment of Maryland citizens. We create the knowledge that cures disease and strengthens communities across the state and around the world. UMB makes the world more just, more enlightened, healthier, and more humane. We are UMB.
State Circle is made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities and is made possible by the generous support of our members. Thank you.
A new COVID vaccine milestone.
I would describe it as a race between the vaccines and the variants, which is why we're pushing so hard.
Governor Hogan signs the HBCU settlement.
It's going to make a world of difference. I mean, you're talking about new programs coming into these schools.
Are the sports betting projections taking the under?
In recent years, we've seen a tremendous increase in popularity in sports gambling.
And the debate over drug needles.
Right now, you have a lot of addicts that are afraid to access services that provide clean needles.
Take the prohibition away from the manufacture and sale of needles and syringes, you create a market for that.
Connecting Marylanders to their government. This is State Circle.
Good evening. The big story around State Circle this week is a new chapter for Maryland's historically black universities. Charles Robinson reports on the signing of a new law to settle a 15-year legal battle.
Founded in 1867, it has been state-supported for 24 years.
And it's like, wait, how long has this been going on? And why has it not been settled yet, even though it's obvious that HBCUs in Maryland were not given a fair playing field? So if it's that obvious, it's just confusing to us. Like, why do we have to fight so hard for not more, but equity?
We're here today to enact an historic bipartisan measure that will be an unprecedented step forward in addressing inequities in our higher education system.
We finally got to this day. I'm saying that in behalf of a sister and a mother of two HBCU graduates. My brother, Bowie State. My son, Morgan State.
Now, I've served in the legislature for the last 11 years, and the lawsuit from plaintiffs and the Higher Education Commission has been this albatross around our higher education system's neck that just has made everything uncertain and has kept our HBCUs from reaching their fullest potential.
The monies will be distributed over 10 years between 4 schools: Bowie State University, Morgan State University, Coppin State University, and the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. The distribution will be based on enrollment. On this historic day, there's a reason we're at Bowie State University, because it is Maryland's first HBCU.
Bowie State University didn't just emerge. It was because of those long, hard-fought battles that we are here today.
It's going to make a world of difference. I mean, you're talking about new programs coming into these schools that are able to then provide the types of opportunities for students that they're not right now.
We have already
gotten approval to offer a BS degree in cloud computing, a BS degree in mechatronics engineering, and a BS degree in embedded systems. And we take a lot of solace now in knowing that those programs are not going to be duplicated by another institution.
The mediation process now begins in earnest between the federal judge who ruled against the state, the attorney general, and attorneys representing the schools. The parties must agree to the numbers in this settlement, and it must be completed by June. At Bowie State University, I'm Charles Robinson for State Circle.
And Charles will have more on the HBCU story coming up in our political roundtable. Maryland this week hit a new milestone, giving 60,000 COVID vaccines in a single day. Sue Copen has the latest.
Cavalry is finally coming to our rescue.
Governor Hogan says with a commitment from the federal government to provide what it calls a significant increase in COVID-19 vaccine supply starting next week, Maryland is moving to Phase 2B this coming Monday and getting ready to double the number of mass vaccination sites.
The week of April 5th, the Timonium Fairgrounds site, in partnership with Baltimore County, will transition into a state mass vaccination site. That same week, we will also open a new state mass vac site at Montgomery College in Germantown.
Other new mass vaccination sites will be opening the week of April 12th in Anne Arundel and Frederick counties. That will be followed up with mass vac sites in Howard and Harford counties. The additional sites come as concern grows about COVID-19 variants.
I would describe it as a race between the vaccines and the variants, which is why we're pushing so hard, why the federal government is pushing so hard to get these vaccines. We have to get more people vaccinated before these variants take hold.
Even as the state pushes to get more shots in arms, lawmakers are considering legislation to make sure the state is far better prepared for this kind of challenge in the future.
We worked with the state health department, the local health departments, all the medical providers, et cetera, and said, let's get a plan in place.
Senator Jim Rosapep, Senate sponsor of the bill, which now awaits action in the House, says the plan was a joint effort. It includes requiring the state, working with local health departments, to come up with a 2-year plan by this June 1st to monitor, prevent, and mitigate the spread of COVID-19, to identify and address unmet testing needs, to establish specific monthly testing goals, and to create the Maryland Public Health Job Corps.
The state would systematically recruit people who are not working in their regular line of work into jobs like administering tests, helping with tests. But you don't have to be a nurse to do the test. You need to work under the supervision of a nurse. So there are a lot of opportunities both to put people to work and to make sure we have the human resources to be able to fight the virus.
Rosapep says he's very optimistic the bill needed to fight and defeat COVID-19 will find its way to the governor's desk.
We're thinking short term, medium term, and planning for longer term. That's what the bill's about.
I'm Sue Copen for State Circle.
Lawmakers are one step closer to decriminalizing drug needles, a move that advocates say will help to address skyrocketing addiction rates. But as Nancy Yamada reports, not everyone agrees.
It's 2021. It's time that we recognize addiction as more of a public health crisis than a crime.
Senator Jill Carter says it's time Maryland decriminalizes the possession and distribution of drug paraphernalia, such as hypodermic needles and syringes. She says it will go a long way toward protecting the health and safety of Marylanders who are battling with drug addiction.
Right now, you have a lot of addicts that are afraid to access services that provide clean needles. You have addicts that will throw their supplies on the street because law enforcement officers are approaching, and that pollutes our communities and causes us to be less safe because dirty needles are everywhere. So this is a tool in the toolbox to try to help people be more safe until such time as they can access the treatment that they need.
This bill is really poorly drafted. And what it does, which was not intended by the advocates, is it decriminalizes the manufacture and sale.
Senator Robert Casserly is among the 16 lawmakers who voted against the bill, which ultimately passed in the Senate. An identical bill has already passed the House.
When you
take the prohibition away from the manufacturer and sale of needles and syringes, you create a market for that. So I would be incentivized then to steal boxes of needles and syringes from supply houses, for example, and sell those on the street. Currently, that would be illegal to do that.
To that end, Senator Carter says the bill specifically prohibits the distribution of paraphernalia when circumstances reasonably indicate someone has the intent to manufacture or sell a controlled substance.
Opponents tried but failed to amend the bill by adding a provision which would have made possession of drug paraphernalia a civil offense, punishable by a $500 fine. They fear decriminalizing it will only encourage drug use.
We really see this as a public health measure.
Gene Ransom, the CEO of MedChi, or the Maryland State Medical Society, which represents 8,000 physicians, supports the bill.
We aren't partisan. We don't want to be in the middle of a partisan fight. We really just think that the science makes sense to have people have clean paraphernalia so they don't make the situation they're in even worse by adding something like hepatitis C or HIV by reusing a dirty needle.
Advocates say the ultimate goal is to get users to seek help without fear of retribution. But opponents say the end result might also be a black market for needles and syringes. I'm Nancy Yamada for State Circle.
Odds are high that a sports betting bill that has cleared the House of Delegates will make it past the goal line this session. Voters approved a referendum on sports betting, allowing the legislature to create a system to award new licenses. Proceeds would benefit education and also problem gambling treatment. The bill directs the state to maximize the participation of women and minority-owned businesses. This new industry will be regulated by the State Lottery Commission. Our newsmaker this week is James Carmel, professor of history at Harvard Community College, author of a book on Atlantic City and the casino era. Professor, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Jeff. It's good to be here.
You are an expert, sometimes consult on gambling matters. We wanted to talk to you about sports betting and the future of that in Maryland. And one of the really interesting things is it's going to make money for the state, but it's going to be nothing like the amount of money coming in from casinos. Is that correct?
Right. I think the estimate's around $20 million compared to fiscal year 2020 when the casinos brought in $1.76 billion. So it's a small fraction that they're anticipating come from sports gambling. However, some of those numbers I think are based maybe on an older model of how much sports revenue comes in through casinos that go back about 20 to 25 years, where it was estimated it was maybe 1.5 to 2% of overall casino revenue. And recent years, we've seen a tremendous increase in popularity in sports gambling, so that we're getting revenue numbers upwards of 4, 5, 6% of a casino's total revenue. And New Jersey, which has probably the most successful sports gambling operation, at least on the East Coast, made an astounding 34% of its gaming revenue off sports betting alone last year. Now, that's, of course, that's with the pandemic too, having an impact. So I think that there could be potential for more than 20 million.
We'll see how it turns out. Your thoughts on the appeal of sports betting? Obviously, people follow sports. There's always a separate section of the newspaper. There's generally a home team to root for. Through this, you can have a rooting interest in anything. And from the business standpoint, I guess it's a little bit different than a slot machine where somebody's pulling the lever, so to speak, every 20 seconds. If you bet on tomorrow's game, you're not placing the next bet until maybe the next day.
Yeah, it takes usually a little bit more input, maybe research if people are more serious about it, but it's also something that a lot of people have fun with. Sports being so popular in our culture, and sports betting in particular growing in popularity. So there's a huge recreational pull to that, I think. And the ubiquitousness of sports in the media, that we see the popularity of fantasy sports in recent years, sites like DraftKings and FanDuel have also increased that quite a bit. A lot of people, young men especially, getting into fantasy sports, and those are tied to gaming. And I would fully expect that Maryland, whatever happens in Maryland, will include the big sports fantasy operators like DraftKings and FanDuel, and we're going to see a big fantasy element play out there too.
Also in the bill, I believe there is the potential for online betting, mobile betting. From the standpoint of the casinos, would they see that as an opportunity or a threat?
No, the casinos are seeing that as an opportunity, and a lot of them, in fact, have their in-house apps that you could use. MGM's in particular, MGM Bet is their in-house sports app. It's quite successful and efficient, and people really like it. And whether it's developing their own in-house sports betting apps or partnering with a whole number of different companies that have been doing this quite a bit with a lot of success. I think the casinos see online sports gambling as a big part of this opportunity. And again, getting back to New Jersey, the most successful model for sports gambling on the East Coast, at least, I think something like 80% of the revenue for sports gambling last year came in through online, through the mobile apps rather than the sports books at the casinos.
There's also going to be betting, a sports book at the stadium. The two football stadiums, the baseball stadium, I believe, are included in this bill. People should maybe worry if they see a guy wearing black and white stripes carrying a whistle at the betting counter. I wonder, it's been 100 years since the scandal, the fixing of the World Series. Is there any way, given the amount of money involved, that this does not end in some sort of scandal? And I'm not talking Maryland, I'm talking globally.
Well, there's always a potential risk there, Jeff. Whenever you're talking about gambling in sports, that there could be some kind of corruption involved. I think a few years ago, maybe about a decade ago, we had the scandal involving an NBA referee, right? Who has turned out to be corrupt. That kind of thing does happen. I think that with the regulations in place and the investigations and the fact that the major sports leagues like the NFL and Major League Baseball and the NBA have kind of shifted quite a bit in recent years with the rest of the culture, and particularly after the Supreme Court decision in 2018, towards an acceptance of professional gambling as part of their sports culture, means that it'll allow those leagues to work with the gaming operators to ensure a high degree of integrity and scrutiny of, like the referees or players or whoever else could be involved. Does that mean that it's never going to happen again? No, it probably will at some point. Someone will be attracted enough by the potential money, and we'll probably have a scandal down the road. But I think that there's going to be a lot of safeguards in place to minimize those possibilities.
One interesting thing during the pandemic was, of course, the state was shut down, and the casinos for a time, I believe, were shut down and then opened with all sorts of restrictions. The financial impact on the Maryland casino industry was not nearly as bad as I would have expected.
That's true. According to the American Gaming Association, in 2020, with the pandemic, gaming revenue overall across the country was down upwards of 30%. But in Maryland, fiscal year 2020 versus 2021, it's only down, I think, about 16%, which is bad. But it looks like Maryland gaming didn't take as big a hit as a lot of operators did across the country.
State budget is highly reliant on gambling money from the lottery, the casinos, north of $1 billion a year. Do you see any threats to that? The most successful casino is MGM, which is basically across the river from DC and Northern Virginia. And Virginia is starting to take some steps, right?
Yeah, last November, voters in Southern Virginia, in 4 Southern Virginia cities, Portsmouth, Norfolk, Bristol, and Danville, all voted to approve casinos in their cities, and they're all now going to get started. And in Richmond, there's a referendum in this coming election in November 2021 to approve a casino. might represent a bit of a threat, I think, to Maryland gaming, particularly that Richmond property, which looks like it's going to be a $650 million development, could be an attractive enough property to keep a number of gamblers who might currently be going, say, to MGM National Harbor or Live Casino in Maryland, to basically staying closer to home from in Richmond and Southern Virginia. The same with particularly the properties in Portsmouth and Norfolk that are going to open up. But I don't think that that is a significant enough segment of the Maryland gaming market to represent a significant threat. So that at the most, probably we're looking at, I think, maybe a 5 to 10% hit on Maryland gaming, particularly to Live and National Harbor. But those properties have been so successful that they actually have that. Probably they could easily absorb that, and that I think is the outside. I think there's also a good chance that we're looking at less than a 5% competitive hit. And I don't see the other ones, which are going to be smaller properties further south in Virginia, as having much more than maybe a few percentage point impact on Maryland gaming. So I think a small threat, because Virginia is now legalized. But there is another issue, though, that I think is more of a competitive threat. That is the fact that Maryland has yet to legalize regular online gambling, not sports gambling, but just regular. People can play blackjack or slots or whatever on their mobile phones, the way New Jersey has and other states. New Jersey made, again, it's like 33% of its revenue on online gambling last year. So I think that the longer Maryland waits to legislate and allow regular online casino-style gambling, then that becomes more of a competitive threat. That Maryland should move forward in that area too, I think.
Professor James Carmel, appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeff.
For the Political Roundtable this week, MPT's Charles Robinson is joined by Oyen Adedoyan, who is the editor-in-chief of the Spokesman student newspaper at Morgan State University. Oyen and Charles, thank you for being with us.
Great
to be here.
Thank you.
Let's start with more on this HBCU settlement news. And Oyen, how is that playing? I don't know if you're on spring break or not, but on campus in the Morgan community, how's that news playing?
In the Morgan community, that news is doing exceptionally well. As you know, Morgan is kind of employing a bit of a semi-hybrid model right now on campus. So we only have about 1,000 students that are actually on the grounds. Then the rest of the student population is all over the country right now, some even internationally. But over social media, at least since the stories dropped on the Spokesman site, we've seen a lot of attention to this particular story, a lot of excitement.
And thinking about the timeline of this story, 15 years. I don't want to talk about the age of the graduating seniors, but the young students, the high school seniors who are applying for admission these days. This got started when they were in preschool.
It's been long running. Oh, I'm sorry, Charles, you can go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, one of the things that's always very interesting is the time frame, how long it took to get to this point. Jeff, you and I have been writing about this literally since we have been at MPT. It is a thorn in the side of both legislators as well as all of the HBCU presidents. They feel like they have been cheated out of an enormous pot of, quote, gold. And at the end of the day, to get to this point, to get that signing this week was a major accomplishment.
Oyen, when you look around campus, what are the needs? And I know there's always physical structure, buildings, that sort of thing. But not only is this pot of gold gonna be for buildings and development, but also the secondary part of the lawsuit, which concerned duplication of programs and having new and exclusive programming at the HBCUs.
Yeah, Exactly. And that's something that we're talking about a lot in the newsroom and talking about as far as the student body is concerned as well. Kind of going off of what Charles said, it's been so tumultuous over this 15 years. So it hasn't been kind of this slow moving bill. There's been a lot of back and forth between even just last year, the governor, Larry Hogan, had vetoed the bill. And so we covered that due to coronavirus concerns with coronavirus packages coming out. And so the idea that this is now not just back on the table, but also has been passed. The $577 million is going to go towards, like you said, some programming, which was kind of the basis of why this bill was in place in the first place, because, it was proven that Maryland was giving more money to its PWIs to establish these professional programs, professional schools that the state's HBCUs just didn't have. And so our student body had to go elsewhere post-grad, maybe to get some of those graduate degrees.
TWI is traditionally white institutions. Charles?
Sure. Let me add to that, because this is not over with yet. There is still a settlement agreement that has to be agreed to by all the aggrieved parties. So that includes the state, which will be represented by Attorney General Brian Frosh, who has said he likes this idea and wants to see, the ink before it dries. There is the judge, the federal judge in this case, who ruled against the state. And then, of course, the attorneys who are representing all of the schools. And understand this, there were a lot of alumni from these schools who put a lot of pressure, not only on legislators, but all the interested parties. Because at the end of the day, you can have something written down, but if you don't agree, it goes nowhere.
Oyen, I just have a minute left, and I'm curious, you're a graduating senior. You tell us about your plans going forward and how much the pandemic has impacted your college experience over the last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy year, one that I don't think anybody planned for, but especially with running a virtual newsroom, that has been an incredibly, at some points frustrating, but at other points extremely rewarding task, because it's amazing to see what kind of work, like, what we got done with the news that came out just this week, what kind of work that can be done in such a, tumultuous time. So it's been rewarding. I'm excited for the next step.
Well, congratulations on your graduation, all the great work. People can find the Spokesman newspaper, Morgan State University. You can find that online. Oyen and Charles, thank you very much and have a good weekend.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
And that is State Circle for this week. Join us every week at this time as we bring the State House to your house. Remember to follow us on Twitter and Facebook at MPT News. We're back Monday evening with Direct Connection. Now, for all of us at MPT, thanks for watching and have a good night.
This program was made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities.
We at Sage Policy Group recognize that this is a challenging period for households and businesses. But Marylanders are intelligent, strong, inventive, and entrepreneurial. Eventually, this economy will bounce back stronger than ever.
What's your next move? Extend beyond your current position or make inroads into a new field through UMBC's professional master's programs and certificates in public policy, organizational psychology, entrepreneurship, and more. Claim your future at UMBC.
71 acres in downtown Baltimore devoted to learning, discovery, care, and service. We train the professionals who secure the health, well-being, and just treatment of Maryland citizens. We create the knowledge that cures disease and strengthens communities across the state and around the world. UMB makes the world more